You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela
and Marchelle,
episode number 130.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast this week. How are you doing, Marchelle?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. You know what I did today? I just had a workout.
Oh, my goodness.
I know. I decided I was going to go to the gym and I was going to do a heavy leg workout today.
Yeah.
And this is an interesting story because I found a new machine at the gym that I think I might fall in love with. And it's called a booty buster. Have you ever heard of a booty buster before?
No, but it sounds really interesting.
Well, my hairdresser loves the gym, and she told me that there's this new booty buster at our gym, and she really likes it. So I thought, well, okay, if I ever figure out where it is and what it is, I'll try it out. So I was in the middle of my heavy leg workout today, and I saw this thing, this contraption, and I saw a woman using this contraption. And I thought to myself, okay, because I looked at it before and I kind of had, you know, when I looked at this new machine, I kind of had some sympathy for people who haven't spent a lot of times in gyms and don't really know how the machines work, because I remember looking at this thing going, where does my head go? Where does my body go? I can see where my feet go, but I don't understand any of this. And so I was really curious. And so I watched her, and of course, from a distance, and I was, I wasn't obviously watching her. But I watched how she did it, and I thought, oh, wow, okay, I see what my hairdresser's talking about. Like, this is going to be really, really good for the booty. And so she was getting off the machine, and she was done. And I went over to her, and I said, I couldn't help but watch you. I've been intrigued by this machine. Can you show me how it works? And she said, oh, yeah, absolutely. She said, I just started using it a few weeks ago. And I started out with 45-pound weights, and now I'm up to 70 pounds. And I've really noticed a big change in the shape of my booty.
Wow.
And I'm like, ooh, well, that sounds good. So I get on there, and the first thing I did was take all the weight off. Like, there's no way I'm going to, she said, try figuring out the moves without any weight on it first, because it is a little tricky. And so I get on there, and she's showing me, and she's getting me, you have to get strapped into this thing. And she's getting me all strapped in. And we had a really hard time because I'm short. And so trying to figure out how to get me positioned correctly and all of that. And finally I said, I'm Angela. What's your name? And she said, Lindsay. And I said, oh, great. I have a new friend at the gym named Lindsay. So
that's awesome.
Lindsay, if you ever happen to listen to this, you're the one I'm talking about.
Yay.
So she got me all set up, and she's like, I put my feet here, and it's a really awkward movement. So just do your best. And she watched me do it a few times, and I'm like, I get this. I understand, but there's no way in hell I'm going to put any weight on this, at least not in the beginning. I don't know, I'm like 70 pounds. Are you crazy?
Oh my God. I know that sounds
and
heavy.
That's like 70 pounds on each side. Like there's 45-pound plates, and then she was putting extra plates on top of that. And I'm just like, no, I'm good with nothing right now. I just have to figure out the moves. And so I did this machine. And again, I've been in the gym for 20 years. Like, I'm not a new person to the gym, but I am new to this very awkward machine. And so I got to tell you, I don't think I'm going to be able to sit for a few days.
Yeah, you're going to be paying for that later. So you like the machine?
I do. I love it. Yes. I love it because, yes.
So I was going to say, it's kind of funny because I'm going to be doing the belly buster challenge, and you're doing a booty buster challenge.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to bust my booty. I'm just trying to kind of reshape it a little. But the belly buster challenge, yes, we do want everybody signing up for the belly buster challenge, because it's going to be awesome. So
it is.
If you want to get in on the belly buster challenge, just go to journeybeyondweightloss.com/challenge, and you can sign up for the belly buster challenge. It is September 5th through the 8th, and everything's going to be recorded in the Facebook group. So and you'll have access to the recordings through like the 13th of September. So even if it's a wrong time of day for you, don't worry about it. You can join us. So anyway, that's what's going on with me today. So I just thought it was pretty funny, like.
Yeah, that's awesome. I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear about it
as I see it, and
as you progress.
As I progress, and first I'll put 5-pound weights on, and then I'll put 10-pound weights on, and then one day I'll come in, I'll be like 45 pounds. Yay! I'm catching up to Lindsay. I do have a little bit of a competitive streak in me. So, all right. Well, here's what I want to talk about this week, because something happened this last week with Marchelle and I wanted all of our podcast listeners to hear about it. And Marchelle is graciously going to share her experience, because I think it's really important for all of us to understand. We had a podcast a few sessions ago, I can't remember exactly what it was, on emotional eating. And Marchelle comes up to me this last week and she says, Angela, we need to do another podcast on emotional eating. And I said, why? So, here's the deal. I can talk about theories all day, every day, but until you actually have an experience where you can apply that theory to your life, you don't really learn anything. What teaches you is experience, right? So Marchelle had this experience. And so I think it will be helpful for all of us to kind of go through this experience with you. So tell everybody what happened last week.
Okay. It's funny. I feel like whenever we do these podcasts, I'm always airing like my dirty laundry.
Oh, no.
And then like during the week, patients will come in and they'll remind me of what I said on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And then I because I'll forget, that I've said that stuff. So I think it's kind of fun. So,
it is.
Yeah.
Fun.
So this is, I'm so glad that we're talking about this, because this was something that happened to me this last week. And I just, a while, long time ago, not a long time ago, but a while ago, I would have never recognized this. Like, I'm kind of proud of myself for even recognizing this. So I feel like there's progress here, but yeah, so I'll share with everybody what happened. So,
okay.
So then last weekend, I got my hair done, and then I wanted to go get a spray tan. So I went by the tanning salon, and when I do a spray tan, I take my rings off, because you have to put this, if anybody does spray tans, they know what I'm talking about. You put this lotion on your hands, so that they don't turn orange. So it's the only time that I ever take my rings off. Unless I used to be, stirring cookies with my hands, which I don't do anymore. So the only time that I take off my rings is when I do those spray tans. So I took my rings off, which was my wedding ring, and which has a lot of sentimental value behind it. And then my mother's ring that has all my children's birthstones and their names engraved, all 4 of them. And then my dad's ring that I inherited when he passed away, which is also very, very sentimental to me. And so I set them up on the shelf. This particular day, I did something different. And that was, I thought that the spray stuff was getting on this yellow sweater that I had on, and I didn't want it to get on the yellow sweater. So I immediately got dressed and I ran to the bathroom to, wash my hands off and make sure that there was nothing on my sweater. And then I left without going back and grabbing my rings. And I just spaced it. I put my rings right back on, because I just wipe them off with a towel. This time, I was more concerned about getting the tan spray on my yellow sweater, obviously, than I was about going back. And so I just spaced it. And then by the time that I remembered, and I, because when you first, I don't know about you guys, when I first, find out that I lost something, and you panic, and then you have to go back and backtrack, because it's like, they could be anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I finally realized, that that's what had happened. And it took me a whole day to even realize that they were gone, because I never take them off. So I just didn't even notice. I just assumed they were on my fingers. So that was like a huge shock. So by the time that I realized it, and I backtracked my steps, and I called the salon, they were gone. And yes, no trace, and nobody's seen them. And of course, I went into panic mode, because it's my dad's ring is the most sentimental thing that I feel like I own. And it's something that represents, his memory to me. Yeah. And I feel also, through this experience, that I don't think I properly grieved his passing, because I think that sort of took the place of him. And I think that I still felt like I have him with me because of this ring. Right.
Right. Okay.
So anyway, I went into panic mode, and of course, I made flyers, called the police, did everything I possibly could to try and get the word out so I could, somebody would do the right thing and return them. And so, Monday comes and Tuesday comes and Wednesday comes, and I haven't heard anything. And what day was it? Was it like Wednesday or Thursday? It was
maybe
Thursday? Okay. So by Thursday, it's really starting to hit me that they're gone, and it's really starting to sink in. And these feelings of grief are starting to come back up, and guilt because, it's my fault that I left them there. And I just felt irresponsible, and I just felt really, really guilty. And of course, my wedding ring too. I mean, all of this stuff, it's just like these feelings are coming up,
Yeah.
I just felt like I really disappointed my husband by losing my wedding ring. I just felt a lot of negative emotions.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody knows me, they know that I don't like to feel negative emotions. And I've spent a lifetime buffering emotions in very unhealthy ways. And food is just one of those ways. Right. And so on Thursday morning, I usually go by the grocery store, grab something for lunch. Well, I walked into the grocery store and I just turned left instead of right. And I went right to the bakery section, and I bought the biggest piece of chocolate cake that I could find there without even thinking. I was just on I am sad right now. Life is shitty. I need something to feel better, and I just can't deal with this. And so I just bought that cake, and and it was funny too, because even when I was checking out, it's like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I'm buying this big piece of chocolate cake, and even the checker was kind of looking at me a little bit strange, so it was funny, but
I would have done the self-checkout.
I know, right? No, I would have, but they were closed at that time. Yeah. So then, I brought it to work, and I knew I got there before you. So I ran in really quick, and I stuffed it, in my stash spot behind my computer monitor, and I put it there, and I thought, okay, if I just eat this throughout the day, then I can not have to feel these negative emotions, and I can be there for the patients, and and all of those thoughts. So it was, it was, I don't know, about 10 o'clock in the morning, and one of our coworkers, she saw me, she saw the cake, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And, she kind of questioned me, and I said, "Well, don't judge me, I'll do what I want. My life is shitty right now. I'll do what I want." So she's she's shaking her head at me, and I ran back and I got a spoon, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to take this one bite. So I took one bite of it, right? And it tasted really, really, really good. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But in that moment, I just felt like I recognized what I was doing, which I would not have done that in the past. I would have just eaten it, and I wouldn't have even understood what was going on. I just wanted to feel better. I didn't want to feel these emotions. And after that first bite, I realized what I was doing. And so that's why I ran back to talk with you, because I thought, I kind of thought what I was just going to do was just kind of talk to you about emotional eating. But I also knew that I needed to tell on myself, because if I didn't, I just kind of played the tape out, and I saw what was going to happen, because then after work, I was going to be stopping and getting something else. And then later on that night, I was going to be stopping, going to the store and getting something else. Because that's what happens for me, is once those floodgates are open, and once that monster's woken up, then that just takes over. And so I just felt like I needed to talk with you about it. So I ran back to your office, and I told you that I said, we need to do a podcast on emotional eating. And you said, why? And that's when I said, well, it's because I got this cake out there, and I'm going to eat the whole thing if we don't figure out what's going on with me, because this is no good. And of course you knew what was going on with my rings. And so I'm sure that you understood what was happening. And so we had a discussion. I'll kind of let you pick it up from there, because this is where you come in. But
okay. So well, the first thing I want to say is that I was super, super impressed that you outed yourself like that. I was like,
me too.
Thank you, Marchelle. No, you are doing great. You are doing great, because you're recognizing what's going on. And that is such a huge step. And you're overcoming any sort of feelings of shame that you might feel to come to me and say, oh my God, you won't believe what I did, So I was so proud.
Oh, thank you.
So then what I did was I asked permission. Is it okay if I throw out this cake? And she said, absolutely. It's just fine. So I go up and I get the cake and I'm like, oh my God, this piece of cake is huge. I mean, she's not kidding.
It was
probably
huge.
Like 4 by 4 or 5 by 5. It was basically 3 or 4 pieces of cake in one.
It was.
And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, and those of you who are podcast listeners may remember cake is a huge issue for me. It is absolutely huge. And so I was thinking, I got to get rid of this because it's going to trigger me, right? So I thought, if I just throw this in the trash, it's going to be calling me. And so I thought, well, okay, what I would do if I were at home is I would put it down the disposal. But there's no disposal in her office. So I thought, well, what's the next best thing is to put it in the toilet. So I dumped this great big huge piece of cake in the toilet. I mean, you guys, we are getting so real here.
Yeah.
How to lose weight and keep it off. Throw the cake in the toilet if you have to, and plug your toilet up if you have to.
Yeah, it was that big. It was that big of a piece of cake. It was hard to even get it down the toilet.
It was really hard to get it down the toilet, and so I had to kind of like, and then I remembered it looked so gross. I'm like, Marchelle, you need to come back here and see this because you're never going to want chocolate cake ever again. And I hope for those of you listening, imagine a piece of chocolate cake in your toilet and how awful it looks.
And
you
horrible.
May never, ever want chocolate cake ever again. It was awful. So that is kind of what happened. We got the cake down the toilet. Everything was fine. I didn't have to worry about being triggered because I knew if there was cake in the trash, I would be more than likely to wait because I stay after. You guys come early. I stay after to get the charts done. As long as I knew that cake was there, I was at risk and I didn't want to take the risk. So I just want you to know, like, these foods are they really, really can be difficult for us who suffer with this. They really can be. And so Marchelle recognized that she was going down a slippery slope. She became aware right away of what was going on. She overcame any sense of shame. She came right to me. I asked permission before I got rid of it. And then, were you afraid that if you tried to get rid of it yourself, you would just end up eating more in secret? Were you afraid of that?
Of course because I had already snuck it in there in the first place. So, I know how I am with food. If I want to get it later, then, like I said, once I wake up that monster, then it's really hard to turn it back off. And so I was so glad. I was just so glad that it went the way that it did because it just could have gone such a worse way.
Yeah.
So that turned out great.
So baked goods will go down the toilet. Okay. I'm not sure if pizza will or chips or popcorn. So those of you who are triggered by those foods, you'll have to figure that out. But I just really, I just really want all of us to understand that these are just such powerful foods. Now, after this, Marchelle, did you have anything else you wanted to say about how powerful these foods are?
So I was just thinking an example of, what else we're talking about is so like after, if you have a party at your house and, people leave stuff there. So this is the kind of foods that we're talking about is, flush them down the toilet, put them in the garbage disposal. Don't let yourself be able to get to them because it is easy and they will be talking to you and be your own best friend by getting rid of them. So there's a lot of different situations that you could be in where, you're in that slippery slope.
Yep. Sometimes, people, you'll just say, oh, I'll just put this in the freezer. Your brain always knows it's there.
Right.
If it's a super trigger food like that for you, ice cream I can have in my freezer. It doesn't bother me at all. But if there's cake around, there are just certain foods or drinks, maybe it's soda. Everybody's brain responds differently to different things. So maybe it's soda or maybe it's chips or whatever it might be.
Right.
Just get rid of it. It's it's like such a decision to just say, I'm just getting rid of this. And then my brain's going to scream for it. And the answer is going to be no. There's not like this possibility, right? And it just makes it so much easier.
As a matter of fact, this makes me think of a story, the really quick story that a patient just told me last week. And so she said, we were just talking about this. So she said to me that we were kind of laughing, about how food talks to you, and you lie to yourself and you think that you can handle it. And she said that I guess that her daughter was having some kind of event and her cookies are famous, right? And she's not doing sugar or flour. So she really didn't want to make these cookies for her daughter, but her daughter, insisted. So she thought, okay, I'm just going to make them for her and then I'll, wrap them up and she's going to come pick them up tomorrow. And then she makes them. The next thing that happens, I'm just going to eat one. And she ate the entire tray that night. And she and I were talking about how powerful that sugar monster can be. Like you can tell yourself you can handle it or you can just have one. For me, and for people that I've spoken with, it's just not that easy. So
it is not.
Yeah. So it reminded me of that. That poor patient.
So again, if this has happened to you, I think a lot of us, I know when I was digging cake out of the trash, I thought that I was absolutely insane. I thought that I have to be the weirdest, most odd person in the whole world. Or when I was, eating Oreos and I couldn't stop. And I was eating Thin Mints and I couldn't stop. I thought there was really something wrong with me. And so I just want people to understand, this is how the human brain responds to these types of foods. You're not abnormal if you find that once you get started, you can't stop. It's just the way your brain happens to respond. Okay.
Right.
So what happened after that was also really interesting. So after this, Marchelle began to talk about what these rings meant to her and how she was telling me that now that her father's ring is gone, it's like she really, kind of what she was describing, she really had to accept that he's gone. And so she was feeling some unprocessed grief. And she asked me, she's like, well, if I'm not going to eat cake, how do I get rid of the grief? Do you remember that, Marchelle?
Yeah, I do. Yes, I do. I was feeling like, okay, now I don't have anything. And now I just feel like shit and I don't like it. And I don't really want to be here right now. And, I was feeling all sorts of negative emotions.
I know. And do you remember what my response was?
You said, just feel your feelings.
I said, if you lost your father, that hurts.
Yeah.
Why would you not want to feel that grief? What's wrong with feeling that shitty feeling for a while?
Yeah.
And grief is a natural human response to loss. We're supposed to feel grief when we lose someone or something that's really important to us. We are supposed to feel grief. Now, it doesn't feel good, that's for sure, but it is a natural human emotion that should be honored and respected. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And so this is the underlying problem for so many of us. Think about what happened when you were a young child. We were trained from a very young age that our negative emotions were wrong. I remember being told, we're all told big girls don't cry, right?
Yes.
We're told that our negative emotions are wrong. We shouldn't feel sad. We shouldn't feel grief. We shouldn't feel angry. We shouldn't feel jealous. We shouldn't feel ashamed. We shouldn't feel bored. We shouldn't feel stressed. We shouldn't feel overwhelmed. We were trained that because these emotions are painful, we need to get rid of them as quickly as possible. And we were trained to use food to do that. And, it's so interesting because I spent the first year of my medical career as a pediatrician. And even in pediatric clinics and pediatric emergency rooms and pediatric hospitals all over the world, we give popsicles and candy to little kids who are not feeling good, who are feeling sad or frightened or lonely, to try to help them feel better. And the underlying message is this emotion you're feeling is not okay, right?
Yep.
I was watching a video on Facebook of a little girl who was crying. It was a very sweet video. And her father was talking to her. He wasn't in the picture, but it was just her. But to her father's credit, he was trying to help her understand that she was sad, but he was also very concerned that he wanted her to stop feeling sad as quickly as possible. Now, I get this, no one likes to see someone else suffering, especially when it's your own child. But he gave her the message that it was not okay to be sad, and we need to do something to cheer you up right away. So they were trying to think of ways to cheer her up. Do you want to go watch a movie? Do you want a snack? She's like, oh, peanut butter and jelly sandwich sounds good. And so he's teaching her at this young age how to buffer her negative emotions, how not to feel them. And of course, he was just teaching her what he knew.
Yeah. I mean, and I've taught myself that I've been doing, I bought into that way of thinking my entire life since, I was young. I used to be addicted to candy when I was a kid because I didn't, maybe things weren't going so well in my childhood at that time, but I do remember when things were negative in my environment, I would go and down to the corner store and buy myself candy. And I would just I would go in my room all by myself and I would have it and just me and my candy bars. And, and I was so happy. And then it, and as I got older, it turned into buffering, of other sorts. But but sugar has, like I said, by far has been the hardest thing to kick. And it comes back so easily whenever I have any negative emotion. So, I understand it's just a really, really profound thing to be aware of. And it's very empowering to be aware of it because I can change it now.
Well, what did you think and how did you feel when I suggested to you that day that feeling grief when you lost your rings was a natural response and should be honored?
I was kind of dumbfounded when you said that at first because I at any cost, I wanted to get rid of these feelings. And that was just like, I was on autopilot. Like, okay, now what am I going to do? How am I going to get rid of these feelings? And then when you just said that I should be feeling what I'm feeling and that's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I've really been told that very much in my life, if ever.
I don't think any of us have.
No, because even somebody else that would have, a sympathetic ear, I could see them or, trying to comfort me with something and to help me take away negative emotion. We just do that as friends and confidants. I've done it with my friends. I don't want them to cry if they're sad or my kids. So, here's something to make you feel better. So it's just really easy to get stuck in those habits.
Yeah. Well, I know that for me, when I really started paying attention to what I was feeling and honoring it, I felt this huge sense of relief. It was like a sense that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm a human being. I'm living a human experience. And all of these emotions that I'm feeling are completely natural and appropriate, right? And what I want our listeners to know is that this is just a piece of the work that we do in Empowered Weight Loss. So remember, the Empowered Weight Loss is a membership that I have where I'm helping all of our members to develop the deep skills that are required in order to keep the weight off. Another diet is not going to help you stop eating chocolate cake when life hands you a curveball, like it did to Marchelle last week. So you'll want to understand, what's really happening, and you need loving support to help you through. And that's what we do in Empowered Weight Loss. I have a 6-month curriculum that I take you through, and we're starting in September. So we're going to be starting the curriculum over again very, very soon. So if you've noticed that this is an issue for you, and frankly, for whom is it not an issue? How many of us were ever trained that it's okay to feel our emotions and that it's important to feel our emotions? None of us. So plan to join us in September. And I recommend that you plan to stay in the membership for at least a year. And here's why. Because the curriculum is broad and it's deep at the same time. And we touch on a lot of things in the curriculum. And I just think you hear it the first time and you get the basics, and then you go through it again and you'll hear all the nuances. So I would just plan to stay in for a year. And we've got many people who have stayed in for 3, 4, as long, I've been doing it for 4 years now, I think. So something along those lines. So we have people that have been in there for the whole time. So what you're going to learn is how to really empower yourself, which is why it's called empowered weight loss. And imagine in just a year, you can do this deep work so that you can lose weight and then never have to worry about gaining it back because you understand how to honor your emotions without the chocolate cake, right?
Right.
So if you're interested in this, just go to journeybeyondweightloss.com/yes and sign up, and we will see you on the inside there. Okay. So remember, I'm just going to kind of sum up. Remember, our emotions are important. Our emotions matter. And we want to learn how to, what Marchelle was doing is called buffering. So she's got a negative emotion. It doesn't feel good, but it's not going to kill her. But what she was doing is she was using the chocolate cake to buffer. And so what we did was we got rid of the chocolate cake, and we had to take some pretty drastic measures to get rid of it because we are both very highly triggered by these types of foods. And so we got rid of it, and then we started to investigate what's really going on here, right? What's really going on. So Marchelle was like, yes, I really now I have to recognize, I thought as long as I had my ring, I had my dad with me, and now I don't have my dad with me anymore. So there's a lot of grief there. And you also mentioned feeling guilty as well because you lost the rings. So you're beating yourself up about that. So there's just a lot of things that can be going on. And, as long as we're willing to stop the buffering and to start paying attention, the awareness is the first step, which you did a great job of. And getting help from a kind, loving, supportive person is also really, really important. Anything else to add, Marchelle?
No, I think that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I really appreciate it. We're kind of like both outing ourselves because we both have so much trouble with these foods. I think that's why we're so good at what we do. Right?
That's why I love talking about these real life, experiences, because it's nice so that people understand that we go through this stuff and just like everybody else.
Yep. All right, everybody. That's all for this week. Take care, and we will talk to you next week. Bye.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.